The Thursday afternoon rush at Rosie's Diner had finally subsided, leaving only a handful of regulars nursing coffee at the counter and a few truckers finishing late lunches before hitting the highway again. For waitress Maya Collins, it meant a brief respite to refill ketchup bottles and salt shakers while mentally calculating the tips that would hopefully cover this month's overdue electric bill. At 26, Maya had mastered the art of strategic optimism, focusing on tips rather than aching feet, remembering regular customers' orders rather than dwelling on the nursing school application sitting untouched in her apartment, choosing to see 6 months at Rosie's as temporary rather than the beginning of the same trap that had caught her mother 30 years earlier in the same small town. The bell above the door jingled, pulling her attention from condiment duty. The smile she'd automatically prepared froze as recognition hit with physical force. Ryan Delaney, 3 years after he'd left for college with promises to return, 2 years after his calls had stopped, 8 months after she'd heard through hometown gossip that he'd dropped out and moved back to his parents' place on the other side of Pine Creek. Maya, her name emerged as statement rather than greeting, his voice deeper than she remembered but carrying the same entitled confidence that had once seemed charismatic rather than arrogant to her 18-year-old self. "Heard you were working here." Before she could formulate a response appropriate for the diner's public setting, the universe delivered its second shock of the hour. The door chimed again, admitting a group that instantly transformed the atmosphere from quiet afternoon lull to crackling tension. 3 men in leather cuts bearing the unmistakable insignia of the Steel Wolves Motorcycle Club paused just inside the entrance, their collective presence somehow expanding to fill the small-town diner. The leader, broad-shouldered with silver threading through his dark beard, surveyed the room with calm assessment before his gaze settled on Maya with unexpected recognition. In that frozen moment, caught between an unwelcome past and an intimidating present, Maya Collins had no way of knowing that the collision of these separate worlds would irrevocably alter the careful boundaries she'd constructed around her life and heart. If you love forbidden love stories, subscribe and don't miss the next one. "Didn't know you were back in town," Maya managed, professional waitress smile firmly in place as she reached for menus with practiced efficiency. Public setting demanded civilized interaction regardless of complicated history or personal preference. Ryan's smile didn't reach his eyes as he slid onto counter stool directly in her section, rather than taking open booth that would have given her space to breathe between necessary interactions. "Got tired of pretending to care about engineering. Some of us belong in Pinewood, right?" The implication hung between them, Ryan returning to embrace hometown roots while she remained trapped by circumstances rather than choice. Before Maya could navigate diplomatic response, she felt rather than saw the bikers settle into corner booth within her section, their presence altering diner's atmosphere despite their quiet entry and controlled movements. "Coffee while you decide?" she offered Ryan, desperate for momentary escape to recalibrate emotions his unexpected appearance had triggered. "Still know how I take it?" he challenged, intimate reference to shared history deliberately inserted into public interaction. Maya maintained professional composure despite discomfort. "Cream, 3 sugars. Though doctor probably recommends moderation these days." The subtle reminder of time passed and connections severed landed effectively, Ryan's expression tightening briefly before artificial smile returned. "Some things never change in good old Pinewood, including the service industry catching Pinewood High's brightest." The deliberate dig required no translation. Reference to valedictorian status that had once promised escape from small-town limitations now deployed as evidence of failure rather than potential. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks despite determination to remain professionally detached. "Enjoy your coffee," she replied with deliberate neutrality, turning toward corner booth where bikers waited with unexpected patience rather than demanding immediate attention. The leader acknowledged her approach with respectful nod, nothing in his demeanor suggesting intimidation or condescension, despite rough appearance and reputation that preceded Steel Wolves throughout region. "Afternoon, 3 coffees to start whenever you're ready." The simple courtesy, professionally appropriate without performative charm or entitled familiarity, provided unexpected contrast to Ryan's approach. Maya distributed menus with steady hands despite heightened awareness of navigating between past relationship and unfamiliar customers, representing world outside her normal experience. Specials are on the board, she explained automatically. Kitchen makes excellent meatloaf on Thursdays. Appreciate the recommendation, the leader replied with simple acknowledgement, studying menu rather than her with appropriate customer boundaries. The two younger members followed his example, interaction remaining comfortably within professional parameters despite intimidating appearance. As Maya returned to counter with coffee carafe, she found Ryan watching her interaction with undisguised disapproval. Seriously? Serving those guys like regular customers? They are regular customers, she corrected, maintaining low voice despite irritation at his presumption. First time in my section, but they've been coming Thursdays for months, never caused trouble. They're steel wolves, he hissed, privilege and prejudice evident in automatic assumption of moral authority. Dad says they're running distribution networks through 3 counties. Just because they wear business suits sometimes doesn't change what they are. The reference to Ryan's father, local insurance agent with political aspirations and rigid social hierarchy views, explained perspective, but didn't justify public disruption of her workplace. Maya poured his coffee with deliberate professionalism despite growing discomfort with his presence and attitude. My job is serving customers, not screening for your father's approval, she replied quietly but firmly. Politics don't affect coffee pouring. Ryan's hand shot out with unexpected speed, fingers circling her wrist with pressure just short of painful, but definitively controlling. Always thought you were too smart for your own good, Maya. Some things aren't about politics, they're about right and wrong, about choices. The contact, unwelcome and deliberately dominating, crossed professional and personal boundaries simultaneously. Maya attempted to withdraw from his grip without creating scene that would disrupt other customers' experience. But Ryan's fingers tightened with clear intention to maintain control of interaction, despite her evident discomfort. Let go, she stated clearly, training and instinct combining in directly confronting unacceptable behavior, rather than accommodating to avoid conflict. This is my workplace, and you're overstepping. We need to talk about things, Ryan insisted, grip maintained despite her clear request for release. I came back, Maya. That should mean something. Before she could formulate response balancing professional environment with personal boundaries, movement registered in her peripheral vision, subtle but deliberate approach from corner booth, where bikers had observed interaction with increasing attention. The leader had risen without dramatic gesturing or aggressive posturing, merely stood and begun casual movement toward counter with coffee cup, held as plausible reason for approach. What happened next occurred with such measured control that Maya would later struggle to describe exact sequence to increasingly fascinated audience of fellow waitresses. The Steel Wolves president, whose name she didn't yet know but would soon learn was Marcus Kane, simply positioned himself at counter space adjacent to Ryan, coffee cup placed with precise movement that somehow translated into undeniable presence despite absence of verbal challenge or physical intimidation. Believe the lady requested release, he observed. Tone conversational yet carrying unmistakable authority beneath surface civility. Professional setting generally warrants professional courtesy. Ryan's grip loosened through what appeared automatic response to authoritative presence rather than conscious decision, allowing Maya to reclaim personal space with quiet dignity rather than dramatic escape. The simple effectiveness of intervention without escalation demonstrated leadership capacity transcending stereotype of outlaw aggression, precision rather than excess, respect rather than dominance. Private conversation doesn't concern you, Ryan responded, bravado undermined by slight retreat from counter's edge despite verbal challenge. Private conversations typically occur in private settings with mutual participation, Marcus noted reasonably, gaze steady but not aggressive as he maintained position without invading personal space. Professional environments operate under different protocols regarding appropriate interaction boundaries. The measured response, articulate without condescension, firm without aggression, defied Ryan's evident expectation of confrontational exchange that would position him as defender against stereotypical outlaw. When anticipated script failed to materialize, his reaction revealed fundamental character beneath social position as he stood abruptly, throwing cash on counter with performative disgust. Place has gone downhill, letting certain elements take over," he declared loudly enough for remaining customers to hear despite limited audience. Dad was right about changes needed in local business district standards. The departure, dramatic without achieving intended intimidation, left awkward silence in its wake as remaining customers observed exchange with small-town interest in unfolding narrative. Maya found herself navigating unexpected aftermath of public confrontation while maintaining professional responsibilities to remaining customers, including unlikely defender whose intervention had diffused rather than escalated situation. "Appreciate coffee refill when convenient," Marcus stated simply, returning to booth with same controlled movements that had characterized his intervention. The deliberate normalization, returning to customer role rather than expecting acknowledgement or gratitude for assistance, demonstrated respect for her professional position and workplace boundaries, despite unconventional circumstances. As Maya processed rapid sequence of events while continuing service responsibilities, she could not anticipate how this brief intersection between separate worlds would expand beyond momentary intervention into connection that would challenge everything she thought she understood about safety, freedom, and the unexpected forms protection might take beyond conventional boundaries. The afternoon when her past grabbed her wrist and outlaw bikers walked in represented merely first collision in sequence that would ultimately transform her carefully limited existence into something she had never dared imagine possible within Pinewood's restrictive boundaries. The rest of Maya's shift passed intense normalcy. Tables served, orders delivered, tips collected with professional efficiency, despite emotional undercurrents still rippling from Ryan's unwelcome appearance. The bikers remained longer than typical customers, nursing coffees and speaking in low tones that didn't carry beyond their corner booth. They left exactly 20 minutes before her shift ended. The leader, Marcus, leaving generous tip with simple nod of acknowledgement rather than presumptuous commentary or unwanted attention. When Maya emerged from Rosie's back door at 9:30, darkness had settled completely over the parking lot where dim security lights created more shadows than illumination. She secured her purse strap across her body, small-town habit rather than specific fear, and started toward her ancient Honda, parked at lot's edge. The shadowed figure leaning against her car triggered immediate tension before recognition dawned. Ryan's stance, arms crossed, expression impatient, suggested entitled expectation of compliance rather than respectful request for conversation. "Figured we should finish our discussion without audience," what he called as she approached, tone suggesting reasonable expectation rather than deliberate boundary violation. 8-hour shift gives plenty of time to remember what we meant to each other. Maya stopped several feet away, maintaining calculated distance while assessing options. Empty parking lot offered limited witness potential, while Ryan's positioning blocked direct access to driver's side door. Returning to diner meant explaining situation to curious coworkers, while proceeding required navigating unwanted conversation with unclear intentions. "There's nothing to discuss, Ryan," she stated firmly, decision crystallizing through necessity rather than deliberation. "High school ended 3 years ago. Whatever we had ended with it." His laugh held bitter edge beneath forced casualness. "Still hiding behind too good for Pinewood attitude? Guess waitressing is just temporary until Harvard scholarship arrives?" The deliberate mockery, targeting abandoned dreams rather than current reality, revealed underlying resentment she hadn't anticipated given he'd been the one to leave. Maya shifted position slightly, angling toward escape route rather than direct confrontation despite determination to maintain boundaries. "My job supports me while I figure out next steps," she replied, dignity maintained through honest assessment rather than defensive posturing. "Which doesn't include revisiting relationships that ended years ago. Ended because you pushed for more than small-town life could offer," Ryan countered, pushing away from car with deliberate movement into her personal space. "Always looking beyond what was right in front of you, beyond me." The rewriting of history, casting her ambition as relationship failure rather than his broken promises, triggered anger beneath professional composure she'd maintained throughout shift. Before Maya could formulate response balancing truth against pragmatic desire for swift departure, rumbling engine noise approached from street. 3 motorcycles pulled into lot with synchronized precision, headlights briefly illuminating tableau before parking in diagonal formation that somehow established perimeter without explicit threat. No words were exchanged as riders dismounted, leather cuts identifying steel wolves' presence without requiring verbal announcement. "Problem with your car?" Marcus asked Maya directly, question offering plausible intervention reason without presuming damsel in distress narrative. Professional respect evident in approach that acknowledged her agency while providing tactical support through presence rather than dramatic rescue. "Just leaving," she replied with genuine relief that required no performance. Ryan was just heading out himself. The implied dismissal, polite but definitive, established her control of situation rather than transferring authority to male protectors. Ryan's expression shifted through visible calculations as unexpected witnesses transformed private intimidation opportunity into public interaction with audience he clearly hadn't anticipated. "Wasn't finished with our conversation," he muttered, entitlement warring with awareness of altered power dynamics. "Family matters to discuss." "Family matters typically involve family," Marcus observed neutrally, position casual rather than confrontational, despite alert readiness evident in stance. "Unless definitions changed recently." The simple observation, factual rather than aggressive, highlighted presumptuous nature of Ryan's claim without direct challenge that would trigger masculine competition response. Maya recognized tactical skill beneath conversational tone, intervention designed to create space for her decision rather than imposing external solution. "We're done here," she stated firmly, decision crystallized through external circumstances rather than intimidation by either party. "Good night, Ryan." The definitive dismissal, delivered with calm certainty rather than emotional reaction, left limited response options without appearing unreasonable before observers. Ryan's retreat carried visible resentment beneath surface compliance, parting glance promising continued pursuit rather than respectful acceptance of stated boundary. As his vehicle departed with unnecessary acceleration demonstrating frustrated dominance display, Maya found herself navigating unexpected aftermath with 3 motorcycle club members whose intervention had altered encounter's trajectory, without explicit violence or territorial posturing. "Appreciate the timing," she acknowledged directly. Professional dignity maintained through honest recognition rather than helpless gratitude. Situation was becoming uncomfortable. "Appeared that way from timing perspective," Marcus agreed, matching her matter-of-fact tone rather than manufacturing dramatic rescue narrative. Territorial entitlement rarely improves with audience reduction. The assessment, accurate without condescension, demonstrated perceptiveness beyond stereotypical expectations. Maya found herself reassessing initial impressions formed through community reputation and external appearances rather than direct interaction. "I'm Maya," she offered. Introduction establishing equal footing rather than rescuer-victim dynamic that might otherwise define interaction. "Marcus," he confirmed simply, "associates Deke and Charlie." The younger members acknowledged introduction with respectful nods rather than invasive commentary or presumptuous familiarity. The brief silence that followed contained decision point regarding appropriate conclusion to unexpected interaction. Maya recognized multiple potential pathways: grateful departure maintaining professional separation, conversation extension building personal connection, or pragmatic acknowledgement establishing potential future interaction without immediate commitment. "Thursday special really is excellent meatloaf," she noted. Choice representing middle pathway through genuine recommendation rather than artificial obligation or complete dismissal. Kitchen does justice to classic comfort food without unnecessary innovation. Marcus's smile transformed features from intimidating to unexpectedly approachable, genuine rather than performative. Appreciated honest assessment. Professional opinion carries weight regarding local culinary landscape. The exchange, lightening atmosphere without dismissing serious nature of earlier intervention, created balance between acknowledgement and forward movement. Maya found herself responding to authentic interaction rather than social script, genuine connection forming beyond circumstance that had initiated contact. "Perhaps see you next Thursday," she suggested, Professional context maintained while acknowledging potential ongoing connection beyond single interaction. Appreciate tonight's timing coincidence. Timing occasionally works beyond random chance, Marcus replied with measured perspective rather than presumptuous claim. Safe travels home. As Maya drove away, motorcycles remaining until her departure confirmed safe transition, she recognized unexpected collision between separate worlds had created possibility space beyond established patterns. The Waitress and Motorcycle Club president inhabited different territories within small town's rigid social hierarchy, yet brief interaction had demonstrated connection points transcending superficial boundaries. What remained unclear was whether coincidental timing truly represented random chance or deliberate presence following earlier diner interaction. Either possibility suggested narrative developing beyond conventional expectations or predetermined limitations. Small towns maintained rigid boundaries between separate worlds until unexpected collisions created possibility spaces where new connections might form beyond established patterns. Whether those spaces developed into meaningful territory remained to be determined through future interactions rather than single intersection point. Maya Collins had encountered unexpected allies at moment established support systems had failed to materialize. The resulting possibility space extended beyond single parking lot intervention into potential future, where rigid boundaries might prove more permeable than Pinewood's social hierarchy typically permitted. 1 week passed before Ryan appeared again, timing his arrival at shift change when Maya would be counting the register. His presence carried deliberate strategy beneath casual demeanor, public setting limiting her response options while ensuring interaction she had clearly attempted to avoid. "Just coffee," he announced, sliding onto a counter stool. "Unless conversation comes complimentary with service these days." Maya maintained professional composure. "Coffee I can provide. Conversation depends entirely on content and respect for professional boundaries." Always so serious. "Just catching up with hometown success story." Mom mentioned nursing school applications gathering dust while real life happens instead. The reference to delayed plans struck a targeted vulnerability. Dreams deferred through financial necessity. Maya poured coffee with steady hands despite the emotional impact. "Applications require application fees," she replied simply. "Tips accumulate slower than educational expenses." "Dad's agency always needs front office help," Ryan offered. "Benefits package includes tuition assistance for related fields. Could put in good word if certain social adjustments made regarding questionable associations." The conditional opportunity, advancement dependent upon personal compliance, represented the controlling dynamic she had rejected previously. Maya placed the check on the counter with deliberate finality. "Appreciate considered offer," she responded with professional politeness. "Prefer maintaining professional standards without external conditions regarding personal associations." Before Maya could navigate further response, familiar engine sounds approached from the street, precise timing creating a second intervention exactly 1 week after the parking lot encounter. 3 motorcycles became visible parking with coordinated precision. "Appearances indeed matter," she noted with an unexpected smile. "Professional reputation develops through consistent performance rather than external affiliations." Ryan departed with poorly disguised retreat as the Steel Wolves members entered. Maya greeted them with professional courtesy appropriate for regular customers rather than rescuers, maintaining workplace boundaries while acknowledging developing connection. "Thursday Meatloaf maintains consistent quality standards," she noted as she distributed menus, "though limited innovation appears in accompanying vegetable medley this week." "Professional assessment appreciated," Marcus replied with subtle humor. "Culinary consistency carries significant value in variable environment." After her shift concluded, Maya found Marcus waiting beside his motorcycle, positioned to offer interaction without blocking her departure path, unlike Ryan's previous approach. "Consistent timing suggests potential pattern beyond coincidental scheduling," Maya observed directly. "Professional perspective appreciates pattern recognition without requiring explicit acknowledgement." Marcus smiled genuinely. "Operational awareness suggests potential benefit in established presence patterns when territorial behavior demonstrates consistent characteristics rather than isolated incidents. The explanation, framed in tactical terminology rather than emotional protection narrative, respected her intelligence while providing honest assessment of deliberate presence following the initial confrontation. Territorial behavior accurately describes persistent approach despite clear boundary establishment, she agreed, though professional management strategies typically prove sufficient within workplace parameters. Professional competence evident throughout observed interactions, Marcus confirmed with genuine respect. Operational support represents resource availability rather than capability questioning. The distinction, assistance offered without undermining her agency, represented fundamental difference from Ryan's approach of identifying vulnerability to establish control. Resource availability appreciated from operational perspective, she acknowledged, particularly given limited alternative support structures within current environment. Their small communities create complicated support networks through established relationship patterns, he observed with evident understanding of small-town dynamics. Territorial enforcement often overrides stated boundaries when community reinforcement follows established hierarchy rather than expressed consent. The insight demonstrated sophisticated understanding beyond expected analysis from an outlaw motorcycle president. Their conversation had shifted into genuine exchange, revealing unexpected intellectual alignment. Educational background suggests professional aspirations beyond current occupational placement, Marcus noted after further conversation. Nursing school applications awaiting application fees, Maya confirmed without defensive justification. Service industry providing necessary financial foundation rather than permanent career trajectory. Educational pursuit represents significant investment beyond financial requirements, he noted with evident respect. Operational support extends beyond territorial security parameters if practical assistance serves established objectives. The offer, framed as resource availability rather than charitable rescue, maintained respectful acknowledgement of her agency. Maya recognized the fundamental difference from Ryan's conditional assistance requiring personal compliance versus support honoring her autonomy. Perhaps coffee conversation might provide interesting perspective exchange beyond workplace service parameters, she suggested. Decision representing deliberate choice rather than obligation. Neutral territory offering appropriate environmental conditions for extended communication. Marcus's smile transformed his features from intimidating to genuinely appealing. Perspective exchange holds significant value. Timing and location parameters entirely within your determination framework. As they established communication for a future meeting, neutral location, daylight meeting, transportation independence maintained. Maya recognized a developing connection transcending conventional boundaries between separate worlds that typically remained isolated within Pinewood's rigid hierarchy. Whatever developed from this foundation would represent genuine choice rather than social expectation or limited options within their restricted environment. The Pine Creek Cafe sat halfway between Rosie's Diner and Steel Wolf's territory, neutral ground where Maya and Marcus could meet without triggering small-town gossip. Their conversation flowed with surprising ease despite apparent differences. Marcus's military service provided an unexpected connection point with Maya's father. Career Army before cancer claimed him 5 years earlier, leaving medical bills that had consumed family savings and redirected her educational plans. Financial realities frequently override merit-based advancement opportunities, Marcus observed without judgment. System design flaw rather than individual failure despite cultural narrative suggesting otherwise. Their conversation revealed unexpected parallels beneath surface differences, both navigating environments where assumptions frequently overrode individual capability. Motorcycle club leadership probably triggers similar assumption patterns, she suggested with genuine interest. Marcus smiled. Perception management represents significant operational component. Strategic benefit occasionally derived from deliberate misconception maintenance. 3 coffee meetings over 2 weeks established connection beyond protective intervention. Maya shared nursing school aspirations with surprising openness, Marcus's perspective offering practical assessment without patronizing encouragement. Ryan's continued appearances at Rosie's maintained an uncomfortable counterpoint, His visits occurred with calculated irregularity, while conversation attempts carried a consistent theme, suggesting opportunities contingent upon behavioral compliance with his expectations. Dad mentioned potential scholarship through business association. He mentioned during a particularly persistent visit. Selection committee includes significant community representation. Character references carry substantial weight. Marcus's response demonstrated unexpected restraint rather than territorial escalation. Thursday appearances continued with reliable consistency, establishing boundary reinforcement without confrontation that might have triggered Ryan's competitive response. Everything changed when Ryan's latest appearance coincided with a scheduling error that left Maya managing an unusually busy shift without adequate staff. His persistence exceeded previous boundaries, position at the counter creating service obstruction, while interrupting necessary customer interactions. "Just need confirmation for committee recommendation," he insisted despite visible service demands. Simple yes regarding reconsideration of previous relationship status creates significant opportunity access. "Current service requirements preclude extended conversation," she stated firmly. Ryan's response revealed frustration beneath artificial reasonableness. His hand shot out, fingers circling her wrist with the same possessive grip that had triggered their parking lot confrontation. "Always too busy for important conversation, while serving coffee remains priority," he commented loudly. Interesting standards from someone supposedly focused on professional advancement. "Release my wrist," she requested with quiet firmness. Professional environment requires appropriate interaction standards. Unexpected intervention came through Jerry Henderson, a 70-year-old regular customer whose booth provided clear view of the counter. "Seem to be interfering with service efficiency, young man," he observed with deceptive mildness. "Some of us waiting on refills while you prevent Waitress from performing job responsibilities." The intervention, coming from a respected community member, created a different dynamic than motorcycle club presence might have. Ryan's response options limited through social hierarchy recognition rather than physical intimidation. When Marcus arrived 30 minutes later for his regular Thursday meal, Maya provided standard service without reference to the earlier incident. Only after her shift concluded did direct acknowledgement occur as Marcus waited in the parking lot. "Information suggests escalation pattern beyond previous boundary testing," he stated directly. "Operational concern warranted despite community intervention. Escalation pattern indicates potential boundary recognition failure despite multiple establishment attempts," she agreed. "Analytical framework providing emotional distance. Perhaps transportation coordination might provide immediate security enhancement without excessive adjustment requirements," she suggested. "Compromising between independence and practical safety." Marcus nodded once, respect evident in his acceptance. "Coordination parameters entirely within your determination framework. Operational support without autonomy limitation, representing primary objective." As they established coordination details for the coming days, neither could anticipate how Ryan's frustration following public boundary establishment would accelerate beyond previous patterns into something requiring more than simple transportation coordination. The Waitress and Motorcycle Club president had established a connection transcending conventional boundaries. Now that connection would face unexpected challenges neither had anticipated when coffee shop conversation had expanded their relationship into genuine connection based on mutual respect beneath surface differences. AC4. The fall Maya's apartment reflected her temporary life status. Functional furniture waiting for someday replacement, nursing textbooks purchased secondhand despite application delays, walls bare except for single-framed photo of her father in military uniform. The small one-bedroom above Main Street hardware represented independence rather than aspiration. Affordable shelter within walking distance of work while car repairs consumed extra tip money. The knocking started at 11:48 p.m., 3 sharp impacts followed by silence then repetition with increased force. Maya froze at kitchen table where nursing school application had finally neared completion after weeks of budget adjustments to accommodate fees. Late-night visitors in small towns rarely brought positive developments, particularly given recent confrontations and escalating tensions. "Maya, know you're in there. Lights on." Ryan's voice carried unusual slurring beneath demanded recognition. Need to finish our conversation. Important committee meeting tomorrow. The alcohol-influenced persistence represented significant escalation beyond previous boundary testing. Residential approach during late hours crossing separation between public harassment and personal space violation. Maya remained silent, phone already in hand with recent conversation with Marcus creating emergency contact option beyond limited police department that typically prioritized business interests over restraining orders. Hiding won't fix anything. 3 more impacts against door frames suggested fist rather than knuckle contact. Just need confirmation for Dad's recommendation letter. Simple conversation without audience interference or motorcycle gang intimidation tactics. Before Maya could determine appropriate response balancing immediate safety against potential escalation, secondary sounds registered from apartment building's exterior access stairway. Multiple footsteps with controlled weight distribution suggesting deliberate approach rather than casual movement. Security implications processed automatically before conscious recognition formed. Marcus had mentioned additional patrols near residential area during transportation coordination discussion earlier that day. Ryan apparently heard approaching footsteps simultaneously, his reaction confirming alcohol influence beyond simple social consumption. Calling your attack dogs now. Real mature conflict resolution strategy from supposed educated professional with nursing aspirations. The accusation, framing her legitimate protection through support network as inappropriate escalation, represented classic manipulation tactic attempting to establish guilt regarding boundary maintenance. Maya maintained silence while moving toward apartment door, position allowing visual access through security peephole without revealing presence through verbal engagement. 3 Steel Wolves members stood on landing outside her apartment, positions establishing protective perimeter without aggressive posturing that might trigger confrontational response. Marcus stood slightly forward of flanking associates, calm readiness rather than theatrical display characterizing his stance and expression. Evening, Ryan. He greeted with professional neutrality rather than confrontational challenge. Residential area typically observes noise limitations after standard business hours. Perhaps continue community discussions during daylight operational periods. The reasonable suggestion, framed through community standards rather than territorial demand, offered face-saving compliance opportunity without direct challenge that might trigger masculine competition response. Ryan's alcohol-influenced judgment apparently overrode strategic retreat option that had characterized previous confrontations. Private conversation with former girlfriend doesn't concern motorcycle gangs operating outside legal parameters. He countered with deliberate volume suggesting performance for audience beyond immediate participants. Unless illegal activities extending into residential harassment represent new territorial expansion objectives. The accusation, attempting to reframe protection as harassment while establishing legal contrast despite his own boundary violations, demonstrated sophisticated manipulation despite evident intoxication. Marcus maintained calm composure without defensive response or authority challenge that might escalate rather than resolve situation. Noise complaints from multiple residential occupants triggered standard community support protocols. He explained with continued reasonable tone despite provocative accusation. Perhaps continue important discussions after appropriate rest period allows optimized communication effectiveness. The de-escalation approach, offering reasonable alternative without direct confrontation, demonstrated consistent tactical restraint Maya had observed throughout developing situation. Ryan's response revealed frustration beneath artificial reasonableness that had characterized previous interactions before alcohol had reduced inhibition barriers, always interfering with important conversations while pretending community concern justifies territorial enforcement. He stated with increasing volume suggesting performance aspect beyond immediate confrontation. Interesting protection racket development targeting specific residents rather than business district limitations. Before Marcus could navigate further de-escalation attempt, apartment building's main entrance opened to reveal Jerry Henderson emerging with evident purpose, despite late hour and sleeping attire beneath hastily donned jacket. The 70-year-old's appearance created unexpected community witness beyond confrontation participants, presence establishing legitimate complaint validation, rather than isolated territorial dispute. Causing significant noise disturbance beyond reasonable hour limitations, young man, Jerry observed with same mild tone that had effectively intervened during diner confrontation. Some of us maintain regular sleep schedules despite weekend approaching, perhaps continue social interactions during appropriate daylight hours. The intervention, coming from respected community member without motorcycle club affiliation, altered confrontation dynamics beyond simple territorial dispute into community standards enforcement with legitimate witness. Ryan's response options narrowed through social hierarchy recognition, despite alcohol-influenced judgment limitations, just attempting important conversation completion without external interference, he muttered with visibly diminished confrontational energy following community member appearance. Timing requirements relate to scholarship recommendation deadlines rather than deliberate disturbance intentions. Recommendation quality typically improves through appropriate rest periods and professional communication approaches, Jerry noted reasonably. Morning hours generally provide enhanced discussion effectiveness compared to midnight conversation attempts. The face-saving framework, offering legitimate explanation for retreat without direct challenge, provided resolution pathway beyond confrontational escalation or territorial enforcement. Ryan's departure carried visible frustration beneath reluctant compliance. Backward glances suggesting situation remained unresolved despite immediate dissolution. Only after complete departure confirmation did Maya open apartment door, tension release evident in controlled exhale rather than dramatic expression or emotional breakdown that might have characterized response without recent pattern recognition development. Her acknowledgement included Jerry alongside Marcus and his associates, genuine appreciation for unexpected alliance, transcending conventional social boundaries within rigid small-town hierarchy. "Thank you both," she stated simply, dignity maintained through direct acknowledgement rather than helpless gratitude or dramatic relief. Timing coordination appreciated beyond standard expression capacity. Jerry's response carried understanding beyond immediate situation context, suggesting knowledge of broader pattern rather than isolated incident perception. Small towns occasionally require community standard reinforcement beyond established institutional parameters, particularly when institutional alignment follows financial influence rather than behavioral boundary recognition. The assessment, acknowledging limited official protection availability within small community, where Ryan's family maintained significant influence, demonstrated sophisticated understanding of structural limitations beyond apparent sleepy retirement presentation. Maya recognized deeper community awareness beneath surface appearance, just as motorcycle club president contained unexpected complexity beyond stereotypical expectations. Perhaps escort service availability might prove appropriate given operational pattern recognition and escalation indicators, Marcus suggested with characteristic respect for her decision authority, despite legitimate security concerns. Temporary measure during assessment period rather than permanent arrangement requirement. The offer, protection without controlling implementation or autonomy limitation, represented consistent respect for her agency throughout their developing relationship. Maya considered options with practical assessment rather than emotional reaction, weighing legitimate safety concerns against independence within small community with limited privacy parameters. Probably wise precaution given demonstrated judgment limitations and boundary recognition failures, she agreed. Decision representing practical acceptance rather than fearful compliance or independent surrender, though application completion represents immediate priority, given submission deadline requirements. Operational security established through perimeter maintenance, Marcus confirmed with professional acknowledgement of her priorities alongside security concerns. Application completion uninterrupted while external monitoring continues through standard patrol protocols. Jerry's observing presence, witness to unexpected alliance between retired school principal, motorcycle club president, and waitress with nursing aspirations, created unusual community connection beyond conventional social boundaries within rigid small-town hierarchy. His departure carried simple acknowledgement without unnecessary commentary or judgment regarding unconventional protective arrangement. When Maya finally submitted nursing school application at 1:37 a.m., sense of accomplishment transcended immediate security concerns or relationship complications developing beyond conventional expectations. The milestone represented personal progress despite systemic obstacles and individual interference attempts that might otherwise have prevented forward movement toward long-established objectives. Marcus remained outside her apartment throughout night, presence establishing security without intrusive monitoring or control demonstration that would have paralleled Ryan's boundary violations despite different presentation methods. The respect for her autonomy within protection framework represented fundamental character demonstration beyond superficial factors like appearance or social standing that typically determined relationship potential within Pinewood's restrictive social hierarchy. What neither anticipated was Ryan's response following alcohol-influenced confrontation and public retreat enforcement through community intervention rather than outlaw intimidation. His family connections and perceived social standing created different response pathway than might have developed from individual without established influence network or positional authority within small-town power structure. The waitress pursuing nursing education and motorcycle club president, maintaining territorial security, had established unexpected connection transcending conventional social boundaries. Now that connection would face significant challenge beyond individual harassment or personal intimidation into institutional response leveraging structural advantages against unconventional alliance, developing outside established social hierarchy parameters. Small towns maintained rigid boundaries between separate worlds until unexpected collisions created possibility spaces where new connections formed beyond established patterns. Whether those spaces survived systematic pressure remained determined through strength of connection rather than external validation or social acceptance within restrictive environment where innovation rarely overcame tradition without significant resistance from established power structures. The police cruiser arrived at Rosie's diner during Monday morning rush, Officer Davis entering with deliberate timing ensuring maximum witness presence during what should have been routine interaction. Maya continued coffee service with professional composure, despite immediate tension recognition when he approached counter with official demeanor rather than regular customer familiarity. "Need a moment of your time, Ms. Collins," he stated with formal address, replacing usual first-name basis established through years of coffee service. Official inquiry requiring immediate attention. "Of course," Maya responded, maintaining calm despite internal alarm. "Let me arrange coverage for my section." The brief conversation with manager created temporary service continuity while establishing workplace knowledge regarding police interaction rather than private interrogation without witness presence. Officer Davis's expression revealed mild frustration at public documentation rather than isolated vulnerability he'd clearly anticipated. Their conversation occurred at empty booth with clear visibility from both kitchen and counter areas, positioning representing her strategic choice rather than his preferred isolation that might have established power imbalance through environmental control. Received serious complaint regarding harassment situation and potential intimidation activities. Davis began, notebook positioned with deliberate official display. "Mr. Delaney reports concerning pattern involving yourself and known criminal elements operating within county jurisdiction." The framing, positioning Ryan as victim reporting legitimate concerns rather than instigator following multiple boundary violations, represented predictable narrative reversal through official channels where family influence maintained significant impact on institutional response patterns. Maya maintained composed expression, despite internal recognition of systematic disadvantage within current interaction framework. "Interesting interpretation of documented events," she responded carefully. "Legal terminology reflecting abandoned pre-law studies." Multiple witnesses observed several incidents involving unwanted contact and residential disturbance during inappropriate hours initiated by Mr. Delaney, despite clear boundary establishment through various communication methodologies. Davis's expression shifted slightly at unexpected articulate response, contrasting with anticipated defensive reaction or intimidated compliance based on authority presence. His note-taking paused briefly before resuming with adjusted approach. "Relationship history creates complicated perception regarding appropriate communication attempts versus unwanted contact classification," he suggested, victim-blaming framework thinly disguised beneath official terminology. particularly when third-party involvement introduces potential intimidation factors beyond original interaction participants. Former relationship ended 3 years ago, through mutual communication establishing clear separation. Maya corrected firmly. Recent interaction attempts continued despite explicit boundary clarification, through multiple witnessed incidents establishing pattern recognition beyond isolated communication attempt classification. Their exchange continued with increasing formality, as Maya maintained precise documentation of factual events without emotional escalation or defensive posturing that might have undermined credibility within official interaction. Davis's frustration became gradually visible as anticipated intimidation through authority presentation failed to produce expected compliance or narrative acceptance. Mr. Delaney's family maintains significant community contribution history through business development and philanthropic activities, he finally stated, abandoning procedural pretense for direct influence leverage. Scholarship recommendations frequently assist deserving students pursuing educational advancement beyond current employment limitations. The explicit connection between harassment complaint dismissal and potential educational opportunity access represented blatant manifestation of systemic advantage Maya had recognized throughout developing situation. Her response required careful navigation between righteous indignation and practical assessment of limited options within restricted environment where institutional protection remained allocated through influence networks rather than equitable distribution. Educational advancement through legitimate application processes represents primary objective beyond current employment parameters, she acknowledged without yielding fundamental position regarding harassment documentation. Though personal autonomy and appropriate boundary recognition remain non-negotiable requirements, regardless of potential opportunity access limitations. The waitress and police officer maintained eye contact during momentary silence, following her clear position statement. Dignity preserved through direct communication rather than intimidated compliance or emotional reaction that might have diminished perceived credibility within official interaction framework. Davis eventually closed notebook with deliberate movement, suggesting temporary conclusion rather than resolution. Perhaps reconsider perspective regarding recent interactions before situation escalates beyond straightforward misunderstanding classification, he suggested with artificial reasonableness masking clear warning beneath official presentation. Community harmony frequently benefits from cooperative approach rather than adversarial positioning that might create unnecessary complications within limited operational environment. The implied threat, potential consequences beyond current interaction if complaint pursuit continued against established influence networks, required no translation despite carefully constructed deniability within official communication framework. Maya maintained composed expression, while recognizing significant challenge beyond individual harassment into institutional protection limitations for those operating outside established power structures. Perspective consideration represents ongoing process incorporating multiple information sources beyond singular narrative presentation. She responded carefully. Documentation continuation ensures accurate assessment regarding interaction pattern development, rather than isolated incident evaluation without contextual framework inclusion. Their conversation concluded without resolution or official documentation beyond notebook contents, unlikely to generate legitimate investigation, given demonstrated institutional alignment with established influence networks. Maya returned to work responsibilities with professional composure, despite internal recognition of systematic disadvantage within current operational environment. Marcus arrived during afternoon lull rather than standard Thursday timing, presence adjusted to developing situation parameters with characteristic tactical awareness. Their conversation maintained appropriate customer-server interaction boundaries, while establishing communication regarding situation development beyond protective concerns into institutional response territory. Official response follows predictable methodology, utilizing established influence channels. Maya summarized quietly during coffee service interaction, allowing brief conversation without obvious extended communication. Though documentation continuation ensures accurate record maintenance despite institutional validation limitations, operational support extends beyond physical presence parameters into alternative methodology implementation. Marcus assured with similar low-volume communication, maintaining public interaction appropriateness. Resource availability includes documentation options through independent channels unconnected to local influence networks. The exchange, establishing continued alliance without theatrical declarations or dramatic promises, represented developing partnership based on mutual respect and shared assessment regarding systematic challenge beyond individual harassment situation. Maya found practical comfort in authentic support, without excessive reassurance or controlling protection narrative that might have paralleled Ryan's approach despite different presentation methods. That evening, 3 Steel Wolves vehicles parked outside Rosie's during closing procedures, visible presence establishing security without confrontational positioning or territorial display that might have triggered escalation through official channels. Their careful distance maintained plausible transportation coordination rather than intimidation presentation that could have justified intervention through law enforcement response. As Maya completed closing duties and approached waiting vehicles, moment of decision crystallized regarding developing relationship beyond protective alliance or circumstantial connection into deliberate choice carrying potential consequences within restrictive environment, where unconventional associations frequently triggered systematic resistance beyond individual disapproval. Application completion represents significant achievement despite operational challenges, Marcus noted as she approached. Genuine recognition without patronizing congratulation or unnecessary dramatization. Forward progress despite systematic obstruction demonstrates impressive determination beyond environmental limitation parameters. The acknowledgement, focusing on her accomplishment rather than his protection, represented consistent respect for her agency throughout developing relationship. Maya found herself responding to fundamental character demonstration rather than superficial factors like appearance or social standing that typically determined relationship potential within Pinewood's rigid hierarchy. Perhaps motorcycle transportation might provide interesting perspective shift beyond current operational parameters, she suggested, decision representing deliberate choice rather than fear-based compliance or gratitude obligation. Weather conditions appear suitable for alternative viewpoint experience through environmental immersion rather than standard vehicle separation. Marcus's smile transformed features from intimidating to genuinely appealing, warmth reaching eyes rather than remaining surface performance. Perspective shifts frequently provide valuable reassessment opportunities beyond established perception limitations. Safety protocols naturally included within operational framework. As Maya accepted offered helmet and joined Marcus on motorcycle, rather than entering separate vehicle as previously established, choice represented deliberate movement beyond protective alliance into genuine connection based on authentic compatibility rather than circumstantial necessity or conventional expectation within restrictive environment. The Waitress, pursuing nursing education and motorcycle club president, had established connection, transcending conventional social boundaries through mutual respect and unexpected compatibility beneath surface differences. Whether that connection survived systematic pressure remained determined through relationship strength rather than external validation or social acceptance within small town, where innovation rarely overcame tradition without significant resistance. Sometimes protection evolves into partnership, when authentic connection develops beyond circumstantial alliance into deliberate choice based on mutual recognition rather than conventional compatibility or social expectation. The resulting relationship frequently faces significant challenges beyond individual disapproval into systematic resistance requiring shared commitment rather than temporary alignment or surface attraction without foundational strength development. Epilogue: The Price and the Promise. 6 months transformed theoretical nursing school application into practical educational reality, following scholarship award through Motorcycle Club's Veterans Support Foundation rather than Delaney Family Business Association. Maya's apartment above Main Street Hardware remained practical residence despite relationship development, independence maintenance representing mutual value, rather than connection limitation within developing partnership. The cafe table positioned near window offered perfect observation point for Pinewood's Main Street activities. Quiet Monday morning providing peaceful study environment between Maya's weekend shifts at Regional Hospital, where practical training supplemented classroom education beyond theoretical knowledge development. Marcus's arrival carried familiar comfort beneath surface awareness regarding community perception concerning unusual relationship between nursing student and motorcycle club president. Course materials suggest significant progress beyond initial curriculum expectations. He observed after greeting containing genuine warmth without public display that might have created unnecessary attention within small-town observation parameters. Though practical application typically requires experiential development beyond theoretical framework establishment, the assessment, accurate without condescension, demonstrated consistent respect for her intelligence alongside genuine interest in her educational development. Maya's response carried matching authenticity beneath casual interaction, appropriate for public setting. Clinical rotation provides invaluable practical context beyond classroom limitations. She agreed with enthusiasm, tempered through appropriate volume maintenance within public environment. Though administrative challenges occasionally create interesting navigation requirements beyond patient care parameters. Their conversation continued with comfortable familiarity, established through months of genuine connection development, rather than social performance or conventional relationship pattern adherence. When Ryan entered cafe with deliberate timing, suggesting planned interaction rather than coincidental appearance, shared awareness passed between them without requiring verbal communication or obvious acknowledgement regarding potential confrontation situation. 6 months had transformed harassment pattern into careful distance maintenance following official complaint documentation through county-level channels beyond local influence network parameters. Marcus's extensive security camera installation throughout residential building had created evidence documentation beyond witness testimony, while Steel Wolf's surprising legal representation resources had established formal protection framework through official channels, despite local resistance through established influence networks. Ryan approached their table with artificial casualness, masking evident tension beneath social performance. Community adjustment following official harassment documentation, requiring public behavior modification, despite private resentment maintenance. His acknowledgement contained minimal politeness without genuine acceptance regarding relationship development beyond his previous control attempts. Maya, Mr. Kane. Formal address representing required interaction without relationship validation or social approval beyond minimal civility maintenance within public environment. Interesting academic development following alternative scholarship acceptance rather than traditional community support mechanisms. O. The implied criticism, educational advancement through unconventional channels rather than established influence networks, revealed continued perspective limitation despite behavior modification following official intervention through documentation presentation beyond local authority parameters. Maya maintained composed expression, while Marcus demonstrated characteristic tactical restraint despite provocation potential within current interaction. Educational advancement represents primary objective beyond specific methodology application. She responded with professional civility, rather than defensive justification or unnecessary confrontation. Results validation through performance demonstration, rather than process evaluation creating most accurate assessment parameters. Ryan's expression revealed momentary frustration beneath maintained social presentation, articulate response contrasting with anticipated defensive reaction, or intimidated compliance based on previous relationship history and social hierarchy positioning within small-town environment. His departure carried visible tension beneath artificial casualness. Backward glance suggesting situation remained internally unresolved despite official resolution through documentation channels. Environmental adaptation occasionally requires extended timeline beyond initial adjustment expectation, Marcus observed after sufficient departure confirmation ensuring private conversation parameters. Though behavior modification represents significant improvement beyond previous interaction patterns, despite underlying perspective maintenance. The assessment, accurate without excessive concern or dramatic protection narrative, demonstrated continued respect for her capability, alongside legitimate security awareness within developing relationship. Maya found comfortable balance between independence maintenance and partnership development through mutual respect, rather than controlling protection or dependency establishment that might have characterized conventional relationship pattern within restricted environment. Adaptation requirements occasionally provide unexpected benefits beyond initial objective parameters, she noted with genuine warmth beyond circumstantial gratitude or social performance. Particularly when perspective expansion creates opportunity recognition beyond established limitation perception. Their hands connected across cafe table with natural comfort, reflecting developed relationship beyond initial protection alliance or circumstantial connection into genuine partnership based on mutual respect and authentic compatibility. The waitress pursuing nursing education and motorcycle club president had established relationship transcending conventional social boundaries through shared values beyond superficial differences or external expectations within restrictive environment. Pinewood's rigid social hierarchy maintained traditional separation between established worlds until unexpected collision created possibility space where new connection formed beyond predetermined limitations or expected trajectories. The resulting relationship faced significant challenges beyond individual disapproval into systematic resistance, requiring shared commitment rather than temporary alignment or surface attraction without foundational strength development. Sometimes unlikely allies become essential partners when authentic connection develops beyond circumstantial necessity into deliberate choice based on mutual recognition rather than conventional compatibility or social expectation. The resulting relationship creates new possibility beyond established boundaries when shared commitment overcomes systematic resistance through consistent demonstration beyond initial protection into genuine partnership development. Unlikely beginnings occasionally create unexpected journeys beyond anticipated destinations when courage permits exploration beyond established boundaries into territory where authentic connection develops beyond conventional limitations through mutual respect rather than social approval or external validation within restrictive environments where tradition rarely yields to innovation without significant resistance. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and don't miss the next ride.